I'm dying.
I don't know who's talking. Kim's got COVID. I don't want to get sick.
Yeah. And seriously, we all, I got a mask in my pocket. Hang on here.
Yeah.
So,
Welcome to the Connect This show. Nope. That's not this show. This show is Connect This. And this is the first show we're ever doing with a live 0.35 second delay in our ears. That's going to drive Travis and I a little bit crazy. So if you hear my language being weird, it's because we haven't figured out the headphones part of being live entirely. We are super excited because we're going to talk about a fun subject that is very, very real for Travis today, which is right-of-way and permitting issues as he expands outside of Minneapolis. And we have our two favorite guests, which are the inimitable Kim McKinley from Utopia Fiber. Come on down.
Thanks for having me again.
Kim, wonderful to have you back. Glad that you're feeling so strong. Vaccines work. Just it was really great to see you in Houston. I'm glad you didn't get me sick.
Hey, everybody needs a little COVID in your life. But I mean, I did get the vaccine and I still got COVID. So be safe out there, folks. Be safe.
Yes, and it was not as bad for you as it's for many other people. We
Absolutely.
also have Doug Dawson, who probably has tie-dye mask for his face as well as his chest. Welcome back to the show, Doug.
I do, and I'm never showing you my chest because it's really kind of embarrassing when it's tie-dyed. I just want to say that this step up in professionalism that we're demonstrating today, I'm now going to hold out for the big panel because I've always wanted to be the center square. So let's just let you know.
Henry can do that. I have no doubt. We are stepping up thanks to Henry, our video consultant or our multimedia consultant. So we'll plug him at the end. But we also have Travis Carter live next to me.
Well, thank you for getting me out of the house. The first time in a year and a half. So really appreciate it.
Except for the times we went to the studio.
And we had chicken wings.
And we'll
and
be
the
back in a
president called
second.
you.
The power just went out.
Just so you know, you two are blacked out. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So we're using an SLR camera that every now and then goes to sleep. So we're gonna keep an eye on that.
Okay, I don't want to be the center square anymore.
Travis with USI Fiber in Minneapolis. We've been going around seeing some of the stuff that you're doing. Tomorrow, my team, which is in town for a retreat, we are going to get a tour of USI Fiber. So that's going to be awesome.
What is that? 9 a.m.
I believe we said 9 a.m.
Boy, two days in a row out of the house. This is exciting.
Now, we're going to talk about right-of-way issues in permitting. And in lieu of the ordinary telecom peekaboo, having this delay is like that little brother or sister that just repeats everything you say in your ear.
I hear it twice. You hear and the echo. So
the right-of-way issues are an interesting thing that just came up in my neighborhood where Verizon appears to be deploying small cells and the sidewalks in my neighborhood are being destroyed. And so we're going to show some images here.
God.
So this sidewalk was 1 year old. It was
that your
totally
yard?
brand new.
is that your grass?
No, that is a boulevard on Summit Avenue, 1 block away from my house.
Okay.
But
So
that's brand new concrete.
That was brand new concrete. They
God.
ripped up that street and that concrete, and then they dropped that asphalt thing. And it didn't even they patted. It looked like they patted it down with their hands. Maybe they're like just. Now there's another photo as well. It's a little bit closer. It's ugly. And I wanted to say that as we talk about right-of-way and permitting issues, it's important to keep in mind that cities have to maintain the right-of-way. And part of that means inspections after things are done to put in conduit and things like that. So now since then, that's what the sidewalk looked before. And now we have a new box there in that area that did not destroy. But since then, I should say that there are letters on the asphalt, which Travis has a theory about.
Do I look at the picture or what?
Travis had a theory. Well, that they're going to come back. That's a temp patch.
Oh yeah. No, it'll be temp. So they'll core drill, because you have to expose all the utilities you're going to cross, and then once you cross them with your conduit, then you put a temp patch in, and then you hire your concrete or your contractor. I'm still stuck with the word you said about Kim. I have to Google.
Oh, inimitable.
Yes. Okay. Remind me to Google that later. So anyway, I'm all confused. So anyways, the contractor will come back and put in the permit situation.
So I was relieved for that. And anyway, it just sets the tone, because I feel like Kim and Doug are going to talk a lot about how cities don't do right-of-way well and how we need to improve upon it. But I do want to talk about why it's important for cities to take this seriously, where the money should go, and just the challenges of getting it right. So let me ask you, Doug, when you're consulting with cities, what do you tell them about right-of-way when that comes up?
Well, first off, wow, now I can even.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
Oh my God.
Wrong button.
I tell them to start that on the very first day, because that's one of those items that can just be a timing bear, because every city you go to has got a different set of rules, and sometimes the rules are amazingly stupid. And so you have to, it's the day after I know I'm going to town, you're in trying to find a city engineer and find out the rules, because if it's going to be hard, you need to know that as early as possible. So, so that's my number one recommendation. And then, secondly is go talk to the other utilities, not the other fiber guys, because they'll lie to you, but the other utilities, and find out what you can actually get away with is my second recommendation.
I have a question for you, Doug. So it can be, I represent cities. Utopia Fiber is a governmental agency. But do you think that sometimes it's just stupid and some of the rules are stupid because cities have gotten used by some of these carriers in the past? So they've tried to put in more rules to kind of mitigate that?
100%, because, remember, it's one set of rules for the electric company, the water company, the gas company, the fiber guys. And so every time something bad happened in the past, they passed an ordinance, or at least the city engineers made up a new rule. A lot of times they're unofficial rules, right? And so now, particularly, I'm, not in the city where Travis is, but when you go down to a city of like 20,000 people, where they may have not had a total build of the city since cable TV went in the 70s, they're not ready for this whole city to be built, because over the last 40 years, they made 7 ticky-tack rules to try to curb in AT&T or the gas company or somebody. And now all of a sudden you go to build, and the examples just are mind-boggling. There's a city that we want to do work in, and you had to turn in a permit for every single pole, an individual permit. It's like, do you guys know how much work this is? And they didn't care, to finally you go to the mayor and you go, do you want fiber or don't you? But, sometimes the rules are just amazingly stupid. And I guarantee you there was a reason they did that. They don't remember what it is anymore, but there was a reason. At the time they were curbing somebody from being annoying, I guess. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk about what we're encountering in St. Paul, Travis. So,
Yep.
What's the first thing that comes to mind in terms of you're building your network in parts of St. Paul, looking at what it takes to pull permits? What happened?
So you would assume the permitting process of Minneapolis and St. Paul are similar, considering they're 100 yards apart. They couldn't be more different, right?
Right.
So St. Paul has a model where you permit per foot, and you can only have so many feet on a permit. And Minneapolis will let you permit an entire swath that you're going to work in, and then work off that permit. So a single permit in Minneapolis would be the equivalent of 12 permits in St. Paul, if my recollection is correct.
Did I blink? Did Kim leave?
She might have.
There's confirmation. Kim left.
Well, you know
She
what?
doesn't
You got
like making fun of Minneapolis and St. Paul.
well, and I think that she thinks that we were really boring so far. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like you were lucky in starting in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Well, we dumb lucked into it. Yeah, in hindsight. But the thing about it is what Doug alluded to. When you're going down the street, you might run into a half a dozen different permitting authorities that you didn't even know existed. So when you submit your permit to Minneapolis, they're going to be like, well, did you get the county? Did you get the feds? I mean, we ran in one this year that we had a permit with the Air Force. Who knew that, right?
Where were you?
Yeah, over by the airport. But it looks like a normal road. It looks no different than anything else. And the Air Force, now you got to figure out who owns that and how to do it and the whole process.
No, even in a fairly small town, you're likely to have private streets, city streets, a state highway, a county highway, and maybe even a federal highway, and then maybe some bridges and park crap. And it's
Maybe
like
railroads.
there's 6 or 7 railroad. All of a sudden, there's 6 or 7 different parties, and this might not even be a big town. So, yeah, it can get really carried away. So
yeah, so we'll do a route, and we'll have like one incomplete section waiting for the rail authority to get back with us. So we had 1,000 people waiting for internet this year that were waiting for a 30-foot bore to finish it off. This is really weird. We get this echo in our ear.
Yeah. Kim, was that a glitch in your internet connection?
We would like not to talk about that, but I am not on the fiber.
Oh, I know that you're not on Utopia, so I feel more compelled to call it out.
Yes, it was a glitch. Everything went blank. We're doing so well technically today, guys. So
we are.
We were just talking about the challenges of moving down the road and building a network when you have to permit from multiple different sources. It's not just like the local government, but multiple. So you run into that too.
Absolutely. I mean, whether it's the railroad, whether it's BOR, whether anything, I mean, everyone has its challenges. And we have a team at Utopia that's always trying to work through these issues. But like Travis had said when I joined back in, I mean, it can be an issue. And we're really transparent at Utopia of when we think we can service customers. So when you say we're going to hit you fourth quarter 2021 and you can't because you're waiting on a permit, that doesn't really go over well with customers either. And they go, when can you service us? Well, maybe 6 months when we get that permit. I mean, it's not a really good customer experience for anyone.
No, and then the users are like, well, didn't you know? Yeah, we put the permit in 6 months ago. We're still waiting for that one person to rubber stamp it.
Yeah. What's the longest you've waited for a permit?
I think 8 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's the most
I
unreasonable that you
worked with
put in
North
for?
Kansas City, and you can see downtown Kansas City. It's a little town, right? And it took them 3 years to get over a bridge.
Wow. Wow.
Their whole
I'm
fiber network was built. It just wasn't connected.
It wasn't. It was waiting for that one bridge crossing.
waiting for that
I
one
will
bridge
say
crossing.
kudos to Minneapolis. We
Yeah.
are on about a 2 to 3 day return
Wow.
on permits now.
No,
And
that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
our suburbs of St. Louis Park and Edina are about a week. I mean, they've got it together.
Now,
Yeah,
I want
that's-
to ask Travis about the horrible story of the park board in Minneapolis. What are they trying to charge you for those boulevards?
So there's no concept of a public right of way with the Minneapolis Park Board. So they want to charge per foot like you're buying real estate. So I want to think to go was 150 feet. I want to say it was 15 or 20 grand. Yeah. So we just said no, thank you.
I see those kind of prices in some of the railroads.
Yeah.
You know, the big railroads aren't bad, but over the years, the railroads have sold off all those old spurs,
Yep.
and the people who bought them strictly for making money off of the permitting.
Really?
They're rusty. There hasn't been a car on them for 20 years, and it can cost you $15,000 to $30,000 to cross the damn
Wow.
things.
Wow. So I want to put a little bit of structure on this, which I didn't give enough thought to. I should have said that one of the reasons that we're here is because we have a live audience with my colleagues who are in another room because of sound issues. Hi, everyone. it's a wonderful period of time here where we're talking about all kinds of issues. But anyway, I didn't give any thought to this show, and it doesn't show.
This is amazing.
So the thing I really wanted to talk about is how this works. So we're talking about directional boring. Travis, you jumped right into it, but tell us how it works. You have to dig a whole bunch of holes.
To a directional bore.
Right, yeah. So, and I should say, we brought them up. We'll bring them up when they have a question. They'll let Henry know if there's a question, and then we'll go over to the audience. But until then, we're going to move forward. And I just want to walk us through. You have to dig a bunch of holes down in the boulevard as you're digging underground.
Okay, I know what you're saying. And it's probably the same for Kim, too. I got to imagine this is more universal, Doug, where in order to bore and you're going to cross an existing utility, either gas, power, sewer, or water, you have to expose those utilities so that when the head of the drill is drilling through the ground up here, we're about 3 to 4 feet deep. You can actually watch the head of the drill go past the gas line. Obviously, you don't want to hit it. And now imagine if you have 12 houses on a block, you have to expose all 12 gas services, all 12 water main, or really the water disconnects, not necessarily the mains, because the mains are so deep. And then you more or less snake the head of your drill down the street, get to the other end, attach your conduit, and pull it back. And we'll see that process tomorrow. And once you do that, then you set up again, and you go to the next block, wash, rinse, repeat, do it over and over again.
And
now smaller towns don't have to do that.
What do they do?
In smaller towns, what they're going to do is make you go to a depth where you can't hit anybody. And so you don't have to. So now you don't have to. You can do a pothole for a whole block. And so,
How deep do they go, Doug?
Well, it could be 4 feet. It all depends on their rule. But and so a lot of big cities. I understand what you just did there. They do not want to blow a house up with a gas line, right? So,
which by the way, the work in my place. I'll just tell you, Doug.
Yeah.
They hit the gas line twice in one block.
Oh my heavens!
Apparently I don't know. Like the people, my neighbors were telling me that they were searching around for it for a while, and there was no evacuation order. So I don't know exactly what happened, but apparently they did something.
Well,
nicking it's actually worse than hitting it because that makes sparks.
Yeah. Well, don't always think they know where everything's at either. We've had that where the old steel gas line has just been capped. They ran a new plastic one up. When you did the locate, so that they showed you where the line was, they showed you the plastic one, didn't show you the metal one. You hit it and off you go. Mm-hmm. It looks worse than it is. I mean, the circus comes to town when you hit a gas line. The fire engines are there. They're blocking off the streets. They're evacuating houses. Actually, this is kind of a new phenomenon. Back 10 years ago, they just reached in there and crimped it and fixed it.
Yeah, my favorite is when you see it on the news.
Oh, yeah.
How often do you hit that gas line?
We don't hit gas lines very often, but if they're mismarked, you can't. I mean, you're going off of what Blue Stake says and where they're marking it. And if the drill happens here in Utah, happens to hit a rock and kind of veers off a little 2 inches, it could hit a gas line accidentally.
Take a step back. This is where, I don't know what, let's say Blue Stick?
Blue Stakes, it's kind of our just our marketing.
It's our go for one.
Go for one. Okay. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So taking a step back, one of the expenses that Travis and other internet service providers incur is that if someone's going to dig or build something, they call in line and say, we're going to do this thing here. That line tells everyone who's in the ground that they have to come out and mark where their stuff is. And if you don't do that and somebody hits your stuff, then they don't have to pay for fixing it, right?
They're not liable.
Yep.
No.
So again, in a lot of states, what happens is all of the utilities contract, and one guy goes out and marks them all. So so that's a fairly normal process as well, where they literally will all sign up so that one guy's out there doing it once. Mm-hmm. Of course, he still is running with 4 different colors of paint lines on the street. Here's the gas line. And when they leave, it's a mess. So,
like we've had places where we've had where we didn't have tracer line in our fiber, and so it can't be marked, and somebody hits it, and they are not liable for that cost. We are, because we didn't have tracer wire, so it couldn't have been marked.
And that's what I wanted to ask. What is tracer wire, Kim?
It's just a wire that goes in with the fiber. and some technical equipment is able to read where the fiber is going down the line.
Yeah, it's a little ribbony thing, which means the sonar radar they pump down there bounces back a signal. It's just a piece of foil essentially. So yeah.
But it's like charged up, right? You have to like turn it on within 2 things, right?
Yeah. You basically think of it just a wire, and you hook a toner up on the wire, and then you can use a beacon to find where your route is. You paint it or flag it. It'll give you the depth, and if somebody hits it and it was marked, they pay. If you mismarked and they hit it, you pay. And sometimes when you bill them to pay, you won't get paid. So I mean, or it'll be 365 days, and you'll be arguing with
an insurance company,
Lumen or whoever they are now, that they didn't hit it because they have a subcontractor who hired a subcontractor who hired a subcontractor, and they're out of business. So anyways, the reality is different than maybe what it's written.
Yes.
We end up paying for most of it.
Okay. So we're at the point then where you dig all these holes, you look at them, and then you're supposed to fill them back in. Yeah,
so we temp them. I hope not as bad as the picture that you presented, but the reality is you use hot, like a tar to temp them so people can't fall in or stub themselves. Then we mark them in our GIS system, and then the concrete subcontract comes out and repairs them.
Now, you told me, Travis, that this wasn't a really important part of running the business. I was curious about that.
Well, there's two parts of the business that get no glamour, but they are the 2 most important pieces. First is the locators that locate all the fiber. They play defense, using a sports term, and the repair crews that go out and fix the grass and fix the concrete and fix all the sidewalks and fix the street. It's not a glamorous job, but it's very important.
Are the repair crews like the libero?
The special libero, right? Is that yes.
Travis is big into volleyball, so it's his volleyball. It's a sports thing.
No, so they're out because at the end of the exercise, when you're done blowing through the neighborhood, because remember, it looks like the circus came to town. All the drills and the trucks and the backs and all the people there. What the ultimate goal is, when you leave that street, it looks like when you arrived there.
Yeah. Okay. And for Utopia, like one of our contractors, before we even hit the street, we do like take video before, so we know exactly what the restoration should look like afterwards. Because it's amazing how many people who say we ruined their driveway.
Oh yeah,
their driveway was ruined 10 years before that.
They were trying to get a free upgrade to the driveway, right? Exactly.
So you're doing.
Hey, I think this just got real interesting.
There's a third important party, Travis. The third important party is the guy who goes and sues the homeowners because they think they own all these right of ways. Like, you just dug my tulips. You know, it's like, well, those really were not on your land.
Well,
so the funny
part is, I like the ones that, like Kim was alluding to, that are trying to get a free sidewalks, free driveways, free everything. Or the people that have the natural prairie garden, bunch of weeds, right? It looks like crap. It's a whole bunch of weeds, and are complaining that we messed up their natural prairie butterfly garden. No, they've been too lazy to mow it.
No, it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing how many sprinklers we hit that we didn't go within 30 feet of it. And our contractor is very nice, and a lot of times they'll just go out and replace that one sprinkler head because it's not worth the 2 weeks worth of fighting for a sprinkler head.
Yes, you're going to see a miracle today that has never happened before. Chicken wings.
Whoa.
Chris Mitchell provided.
Was it his staff or was it Chris?
Valid point. Who paid?
It was definitely my staff that both came up with the idea and executed it.
Wow, Kim, we really are second-class citizens. I just tell you.
Well, we wanted to talk to you about the show in February. We're going to come to Minneapolis, and we'll do this again.
Now, the thing is that we ran this through a board because Henry's a pro. Is that I can't mute myself while I eat.
Oh, dear Lord. I hope this show's over quick then.
How much of a project does the restoration cost? That's a good question.
Well, I want to ask. So, I want to ask him to start that while we go on mute.
How much does of the project does a restoration cost? I am not sure about that at all. I know that it's just in our contract that the restoration happens with the conduit crews. So I'm not sure what percentage of that is. And that is a terrible answer, but I can probably follow up with you the next time I'm on Connect This.
Well, actually, Kim, I don't know either, and the reason is because the construction is usually bid out on a per unit basis, and the restoration's built in those prices. I have no idea what percentage of it is either. It's just built. It's part of what you get. So, and so I've never seen a line item for it.
Let's get a bill. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know panels are like $500 each to put new panels in. ADA corners are like $3,500 to $5,000. So I really encourage not disturbing them, because you can't just fix a little part of it. You have to redo the whole thing.
Sidewalk piece?
Yeah, the sidewalk pieces. A few flowers here and there. That's not a big deal. But I like Kim's deal where we do the same thing. We take pictures of the area before we disturb it, and then you also have the Google images, so we can see that cracked sidewalk from 20 years ago that the person's complaining about. They want a new one.
Yeah, that's why I was really concerned about this area that I walk regularly, and how ugly and just misshapen it is. So I'm really glad they're gonna probably tear it out and redo it.
Yeah.
Well, that's still unusual, honestly. Usually the temp guys even do a fairly good job. So, Verizon either cut corners, or it is the subcontractor of the subcontractor of the subcontractor.
Yeah.
Who's saving.
And you're only as good as the people on the ground.
And
technically, this.
Yeah.
Go, Kim.
And in the city, if they're going to really go after them to replace it, because some cities just don't take the time, but other cities are more diligent on going back after the contractor to make sure it's restored correctly.
Well, and that's a really good point, is inspections. A lot of cities inspect every one of these stages. They're inspecting the potholes, they're inspecting the temp plugs, they're inspecting the final. And so, those folks are not going to let you get away with anything. They come out and make sure if there's any dirt that you've put on, some sort of screening so it doesn't roll away in a windstorm or a rainstorm. And so some cities are really, into that, and other cities barely come out at all. So that's why my first comment was find out what you can get away with.
And that's
because you're always going to try to put it back the way it was.
Yeah.
But if in the middle, if you don't have to be quite so anal, then that's it's nice to know that. So.
Well, and that's where I'm curious about Kim's perspective, because you're both representing the cities, and then you also have to deal with right-of-way policies in each city. And you ever have conflicts along those lines? I mean, how does that work out for you?
I mean, absolutely. I think there is sometimes, and I'm still not used to my face coming up so big on these things, but we have to work through, because they have to treat us exactly the same as they do any other telecommunications company. So we run into the same obstacles that a Verizon or an AT&T would run into. I think that our strategy is that we work through relationships that we have with the city to really resolve those issues in a quick manner, because at the end of the day, the city is the one who's asking us to put in this infrastructure. So yeah, I think we do have a leg up because we are part of the cities, but it doesn't give us any advantages of the permitting process or whatnot at all.
No, I have something that I have to say here, because the one that always kills me is when a city builds it themselves, and then the crews show up, and then that's the day they find out they have to follow the same rules as everybody else. because over the years, when they did little things, this electric company, they didn't follow those rules. But when they do the big build, they have to, because the other carriers are making sure that they do.
They will.
And all of a sudden, they go to start their construction, and they didn't pull any permits.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen. It's like, nope, go do your own paperwork, dude. Cities, and all of a sudden you see those ordinances change real fast when that happens.
Absolutely. I mean, we've run into where we can't get permits, and that's one of the reasons that we do the model, and that we build in specific cities, that we don't build all in one city all at once, because you're going to overwhelm the permitting department and they're never going to get them through. So we are constantly working in 4 or 5 cities, so we're not overwhelming those city departments with permits.
Well, and that's another really good point, because some of these cities you're talking about, one guy who's got 3 other jobs, and if you go give him half of a city's worth of permits, you'll get them back in July.
Doug, you might have followed this closer, but one of the things that I know Google Fiber has done some places and some other companies have done is that they will hire people and pay the cost of bringing extra people into the permitting office to
Yes.
make sure they can get it done quickly.
Yes, I've had clients do the same thing. And so that, when you're going to go to a fairly big city and they have a 2-person staff to do that and you need 15, you just bring the temps in. And now the city has to think that's a good idea, but I've seen that happen several times. So, yeah.
Well, and then the other thing that I think about when Travis said this earlier, and I'm curious if Travis and Kim, not Doug, I don't care what you think on this question.
Me either.
Is my sense is that you would prefer if the permits were approved in 45 days every time versus maybe it's 2 days or maybe it's 75 days with an average of 30 days. You'd rather have it predictable than fast.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
True. Yeah.
You can't.
I don't know how you guys do it, Kim.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. How do you guys do it out there? Because we might do it a little differently here in Minneapolis.
What do you mean? How do we do it?
The permitting process.
I mean that we just submit them. I mean, what do you mean of the?
Well, okay. So since our construction season is only about April 1st through Christmas, we actually submit most of our permits over the winter, so that gives them time, gets them approved, and then we get them back, and then we start executing in the spring, and then we continue to file them for the following year all summer long and then into the winter. So we're trying to be 6 months, a year ahead, but I try to negotiate that with the permitting people, because most of the permitting people I've met are pretty good folks. They just want to know what's going on and give them enough time to work through them and in the right format. And some areas it's just a few days, some areas it's a few months. When you get into the rail and in the big government, it takes forever.
I just got to say, Travis wins the nice overbuilder award, because I've never heard of anybody do it a year ahead of time.
Well, the thing is we're working with these these folks, right? We have to. I've learned early on, if you make their life and their job easier,
right,
they're more likely to work with you on these things. So our permitting package is pretty good. I think it's actually one of the best, and we try to break it into small enough pieces and get them plenty of time to get them approved.
Well, I think you have the luxury though, because you have a build season. We're building 12 months out of every year, and we have a lot of big time frames associated with our builds. So once our stuff comes out of engineering, it's going into permitting, because we have to turn around these builds within 1 year or 2 years at max in order to get some of the financial implications satisfied.
Well, here's the one that we're all going to see.
Doug,
we're going to see 400 horror stories next year when the NTIA grants are supposed to be built in 1 year.
I think
that includes engineering, permitting, and building. No way is that ever going to happen.
But I wanted to clarify what Kim had just said, because for people who aren't as familiar, like engineering is where people that have less of an exciting dating life than Kim figure out where to put everything, which tells you which side of the street and presumably how many conduits and things like that you need. And so you're saying that as soon as that's ready, you're just going in and then you try to get in the street as soon as that's ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you ever have periods where you just have like a week where you don't have work for people?
I mean, I think it ebbs and flows, but I mean, in order to keep good contractors in place, you have to have a steady stream of business. And that's what we try to keep maintaining, is that steady stream of the stuff that's going into engineering, something that's coming out of permitting, like that we're always moving. It's a constant cycle of projects coming in and out. And we have a good project management team that is watching this closely. So we have, just like as you mentioned in the permitting, we want to keep everything steady and at the same pace instead of having these big influx of builds and then no builds for 2 months.
Yeah.
No, I want to say, Doug, I'm really disappointed that I'm the only one eating wings.
Hold on, I was going to pull up the map to show you. Okay, sorry. You want me to eat some more wings?
So I want to ask.
We need to know what kind of wings you're eating.
We didn't straight buffalo, and we got some Parmesan. I think is what Travis ended
They're
up
fabulous.
with. But we're gonna split back and forth, I'm sure. The next question I wanted to ask is actually for you, Travis. So you can't eat right now. And I'm curious about Kim and Doug's reaction as well, of course, which is that it sounds really easy in the sense that you're going 4 feet down, you're digging along, the lights go out, and you hit something. Now in Minneapolis, you adjust, and in St. Paul, they want you to start the permitting process over again.
Well, yeah. So I think you're talking in St. Louis Park.
Oh,
I
right.
told you about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So you draw out where you're going to place your duct, and in the event that you get out there and you start putting the paint on the ground of your proposed route, and the route is different than the documentation, now it has to go back to permitting, get updated, get resubmitted for a new permit.
Wow, that's brutal.
Yeah, it's the problem is you can try to fight the system, or it's easier for us to modify our process,
right,
and then argue too much. And what I've also noticed is when you go into a city to start, you haven't really built the reputation with them. And after you do a good job, you do your restoration correctly, and you are able to make their job and their lives easy with the constituents, maybe they give you a little slack on some of these things. But day one, they start out pretty strict, because look what happened in your neighborhood. Probably some subcontractor from God knows where came to your town, threw some pipe in, didn't care, and left. And now the city is like, what are we going to do?
Well, that goes back to my main point, is that city put these regulations in because of bad subcontractors or bad contractors. They don't necessarily want to put rules in, but they have to avoid some of the situations that Chris's neighborhood is dealing with right now.
And Kim, have you run into the things like that?
Bad subcontractors, or where we have to change.
Yeah, I'm curious if we know that you had real struggles in the past. Did you have a bad reputation with some of the cities you had to deal with?
Absolutely. Some of our contractors were atrocious, and they weren't good partners. Our B. Jackson, who is our main conduit, who does all our conduit work now, is the best in the business. And I think our reputation is better because we partnered with good contractors who make us look better. And they understand the relationships of the cities. So I think when you go back to when cities are looking to start this, you have to find good contractors. And as a governmental agency, we have to be very aware of the cost, but we also have to understand that just because it's the lowest cost on paper doesn't mean it's going to cost you the least if you go with the cheapest guy, because of restoration and other issues that come associated with bad contractors.
Now, the two of you have a unique situation in that you, Kim, have steady work all year round, and so you can keep good contractors busy. And Travis has the whole winter to get his permits in. Most projects are by companies who don't build fiber all the time, and they're just lucky to find a contractor. Yeah. And they always get one or two really crappy subcontractors. It's invariable. And so, they have to fire them as soon as they figure this out. But if they do that, they might go 2 weeks without a buried crew. And so, it gets to be a real problem. And so, the industry has a huge pile of people who are just float from city to city, only chase the highest, prices per foot of building stuff, and they have and they will do anything impossible to save money and get out of town 3 days early because they want to go to the next job. And boy, I'd say 80% of the people who are like you guys, that's what we work with, is those kind of. It's really hard. That keeping the crews, from not going to jail and literally, literally, I'm not kidding, and all that kind of stuff is like a challenge that we didn't talk about. That's what most people have to deal with. It's really one of the hardest things you ever do when you bring in these people you don't know, and you quickly find out that you don't trust. So that's a big issue. The folks on the call here who are thinking about doing their first city fiber, man, you got to be really careful. You got to be ruthless. If someone's bad, they have to go within the hour. It's like, you're out of here.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard horror stories from Utopia 15 years ago where we had contractors who were urinating in people's yards, and, like stuff like that. And that's
that's the mild stuff.
Yeah, that is the mild stuff. But even with our current contractor, when he subs it out, if they do not perform, I mean, he has no qualms of firing them on the spot because he understands his reputation and his business is on the line. So yeah, there's some really bad contractors out there, but it's only going to get worse, Doug.
It's going to get way worse because there's not enough contractors.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to say,
I think people are going to pulling people out of prison work releases, Mike.
we have some really good questions from staff we're going to jump into. I wanted to say that if I was really committed to comedy, though, the next time the camera goes to black, I would just smear sauce over my face. So their first question from staff is on the screen, which is permitting easier when you're deploying underground or on poles? I'm going to.
We haven't even talked about poles. Poles.
My sense is this all happens before you get on the pole.
Mm-hmm.
You have to deal with all this and more. Is that right, Doug?
Yeah, poles, you have to have this all worked out with the pole owner. It's not the city. Mm-hmm. Occasionally it's the city if you got to go put in a new guide wire or something, but it's almost always just the pole owner. And now your problem is that a cooperative pole owner or is that a pain in the rear end pole owner? If the pole owner is the phone company and they don't really want you on there, they can make your life miserable. Most electric companies used to hate fiber, but now there's so much fiber built. They've really gotten pretty good about it because it's so routine. I mean, I've seen a big improvement in the relationship of getting the polling done. They've also come along. It used to be just a massively horrible man. You had to literally write out the permits, and now it's gotten all automated, and it's gotten way better. But the poll stuff is a lot more work up front. It's a lot more paperwork. But because the guys usually doing the other end of it are engineers and stuff, it usually gets approved much quicker. But the actual filling out of the paperwork you get on polls can just be a mountain. I mean, it's not hard to have 3 feet of paper you're turning in. So.
Right, I think in Nashville, Google needed to get on like 130,000 polls.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's roughly 1 poll per family or something.
That's probably about right. Actually, there's a lot of polls in this city. So.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we've gone, we have the phone company who owns some of our poles. Some of them are electric, but we've actually been waiting 6+ months for some of those permits as well. And what we've decided to do is just to go underground in some of those situations to avoid the poles.
Right.
Because you have no idea when you're going to get the permit. So it's quicker to do, hey, let's dig underground for 500 feet and then go back up on the pole that we might be the power company that we have access to. So I think it's just a creative solution to how to get around some of these permitting issues as well.
But you really you have to do your homework and really understand that utility's rules because they're all different and they can be massively different. So you just have to learn that up front in a real hurry because if you just go in with a standard set of permits and they don't like them, you're getting nowhere. So,
Matthew, I'm wondering if Travis is on a single pole anywhere.
Nope,
he doesn't do that. And you're lucky.
Too difficult. You just can't get on them.
Well, I need to make my 3-minute speech about One Touch Make Ready that doesn't work.
It doesn't.
The government came along and they said, we're going to make your life better, One Touch Make Ready. So they created 2 kinds of polls, simple and complex. Simple polls, you put in your permit. If they don't react, you can go do the work yourself. Or actually, in most states, you can do the work with a pre-approved contractor that's on the list of the poll owner. But you can get it done and you can blast through. Complex polls are every bit as bad as they used to be. And if you go down one block, you're going to go simple, complex, simple, complex. It doesn't help you one bit. I still can't get down the street. It doesn't do me any good that I got 80% of them done because one of them can stop me. So One Touch Make Ready is absolutely worthless. It has not improved timing one bit. And anyone who tells you it does, occasionally you'll get to a town where the poles are in good shape. One Touch Make Ready is great. There's a lot of places that's not the case. So. Or
you come to the place where they have to replace the pole because the weight load isn't compatible with adding anything else. So,
or you get to the small, municipal set of poles where they are about 30 years past their due date, and they want you to replace every single one. And I'm not kidding you. If there's a town in Colorado who wanted every pole fixed, $15,000 a piece.
To be clear, the cost of replacing a pole is $15,000.
Well, it can be because it's not just putting pole in. You got to go and move one utility at a time from one pole to the other, and then you got to cut the old one down. Oh, it can easily run that much. Yeah. So, especially ones at intersections where you're going two directions can be $30,000. They're nightmares.
So there's a general question from people that want to hear about railroads and bridges.
They're nightmares? Is that what I mean? Like
Nightmares.
Has Utah done anything to simplify it? I know like Colorado, Minnesota, I think some of the Dakotas, probably one or two, not three or four, of the Dakotas have passed laws to make it a little bit better. But what's it like in Utah?
No, not that I'm aware of. This is not my expertise, but not that I'm aware of that we have any rules that have made it easier for us to get across some of these areas. I would love to see that because, I mean, I think that would accelerate some of the deployment in some of these areas, especially where Doug was saying about railroads that don't even exist that you have to still pull permits for.
No, and not only do you pull permits for them, but they make the process complicated on purpose because they want you to basically bribe them to bypass the process. And so, first you put in your permit and you pay a huge fee, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 just to submit the permit. And then they say, well, we have to have a guy come out and look for it. Well, he's in New York and we're in Oregon, so you have to fly him out there, me. And then, of course, and he's going to schedule that 3 months from now. And so he's going to come out, and I'm going to make a 30-foot bore, Travis. I mean, and he's like, okay, that's fine. And then you go and actually submit the real permit, and then that's another 6 months. And then all of a sudden they find out there's another $10,000 or $20,000 fee, and we don't know what it's for. And it can easily take 6 months to a year to get across the railroad that doesn't even exist anymore. It's just a horrible system, and it's honestly, it's legally sanctified theft because these railroads are dead. And so, they should just simply, we actually had one city who actually went through the process of condemning the railroad so that the guy lost the ownership of it. That was because their town that went through the middle of town and they had to cross it 20 times. It was never going to happen. So they condemned it. So. And
I think we're not even talking about some of the worst permitting and stuff that we don't have here necessarily in Utah, but California is some of the environmental permits and what that looks like.
Oh, I got a good story there.
I think it's worth noting for people that might read into this, but I think all of us on the call have some concerns about the environment and want to make sure that we're being responsible. So it's not like we're sitting here saying, like, you know what, like, screw those animals. We don't need to save them, or like, who cares if there's clean water? I have filters. Like, we're people that care about these things, but we want permitting processes that work.
Yes, absolutely. That is a fair statement, Chris.
So let me give you two short stories. One is in Minnesota. Minnesota, with some of this new federal grant money that came rolling down, they're now requiring an environmental study for even very short builds in the public right-of-ways. When you're in public right-of-ways, that ground's already been dug before. It's already got other utilities in it, and they're making you spend $30,000, $50,000 for a study to go, yeah, we're not going to kill anything in here because it's not actually anything living there. It's not grass or trees or anything. And so that is state-sanctioned ridiculousness. And there's consultants who do that work who just make a fortune doing these little stupid studies. And they never find anything because there's nothing to find. At the flip side of that, I helped somebody build. Verizon had abandoned the Channel Islands off San Diego for
National Park.
And so a guy I worked with, he got a state grant to go out and put in a new 911 system there. And so we get out there, and the park guys go, you can't move anything. And they meant you couldn't pick up a stick. And then they go, and you can't have any device that's outside And so we're looking around, and this entire island has like 3 little tiny buildings on it. So I think that they have the only cell site that is inside a 100-year-old outhouse, because that was the only possible
That's
place.
the only way, huh?
It was the only place to put it, and of course it's inside, so it doesn't have the world's greatest transmission characteristics, because there's no antenna on top. It's like, oh my heavens! I mean, national park guys are just they're. I mean, I happen to be very green, but they're way over the top nuts. I mean, they're just insane. So it's like, come on, guys. I mean, do you want? And they're the ones who begged us to get 911 service. The very same guys. So.
Good.
How are the wings? We have to know since
Yeah.
Our moderator is busy.
Kim, you didn't hear because I was on early, but after this, my wife and I are going on a date, so you're the only one who's not getting dinner out of this.
I'm the one, and I think somebody in the chat asked me if I got COVID after Houston. I did. But
no one, I got tested. No one that you were associating with got it, from what we can tell.
Absolutely, that I am aware of. So,
do we have a little note at the bottom of the screen? This show is COVID free. You're safe or something here. So.
Well, I want to note that the wing shortage is getting worse by the minute.
Hang on. Did you leave any of them? Oh, good. Here, start on these. Okay. Yeah.
He's just afraid of eating on camera.
My mother told me don't in front of a lady.
Yeah, my mom told me that too, but I don't listen to good advice.
which ones are better, the Parmesan or the buffalo?
I've only been eating the buffalo, but I'll tell you in a minute here. I got to come up with a question first. And I want to ask Travis, tell us a little bit about something that I was fascinated with when I visited you, which is not about the permitting so much, but just fact that, like, I was thinking of it like digging a hole is hard because you might hit and this and that. But it turns out there's all kinds of problems of like the walls caving in on behind you and then trying to pull the conduit back through and it disconnects or it gets caught on something. It's not easy.
Well, you and I didn't actually do any of the work, but it didn't look easy. No, you never know what's underground. That's the problem. We've run into foundations. We've run into old refrigerators. We've run into a couple transmissions. Because I think what happened, and I'm not saying for sure, but what it seems like in some point in the past, people would open a big hole, pour everything in, and fill it back in. And
when they built roads, that's exactly what they did. Because you needed something.
My house is 100 years old, and a neighbor, his property was just a dump.
Yeah, so you just never know. I mean, we probably run into more problems running from the curb up to the home, because the worst is when there's a brand new house in an old development, because you know that half of that old house is under the ground.
Right.
So that is the reality. And the other thing that's interesting is we don't necessarily dig anymore. We actually vacuum. We vacuum out the utilities. That's kind of a cool process we've changed. So we had people with shovels that would expose the utilities. Now we have the big vac truck and just suck them all out. So
how does that work?
Kind of like a Hoover.
I understand the suction part, but like you're talking about like a hole, like it just goes in the ground and like claws it.
Yeah, it's basically a huge truck with a big tank on it. It has a big hose on it, and you put it on the ground and suck it up.
I think guys with shovels sounds more environmentally friendly.
Well, no, the problem with the shovel is we were hitting too many gas services.
Right.
Because they would say the gas service is at 2 feet. So what do? You dig the first 1.5 feet. It's at 6 inches. Mm-hmm. So now comes the fire department and everybody in the neighborhood's mad, and we get posts on social media that we're going to blow up the whole neighborhood.
Doug, are we losing you in 3 minutes?
Yes, you are. No. I'm good. I'm good till I'm good for half an hour more. Then I have to bail. So.
Okay, we're not going to go a half hour more.
We're good.
Yeah, where are you going for dinner, Doug? Like
brand new restaurant. Absolutely, just opened up. So.
Do you have any idea what they serve?
It's American food of some kind, but the next level, it's high quality. This is Asheville. We have like a zillion, top chef people here, so it's something good.
Excellent.
I'll tell you, Mara.
So Travis got me distracted on the vacuum, but like I was interested. What's bentonite?
What is bentonite?
Yeah, what is it used for?
It's okay. So when you drill the hole out, it'll keep the hole open long enough to pull the pipe back through. It's used in more sandy environments, where the sand will just fall right in on behind it.
I just found that interesting because it seems like it's a whole art for the driller to know exactly how much of them.
Well, this is the problem. You just can't take any schmo off the street and chuck them on a drill and start drilling. I mean, there is an art to it, and we have different tiers of drillers. So we call them our high-profile crossings. These are the very complex, under interstates, railroad tracks, under rivers, creeks, and whatnot. We only have 2 crews that can do that, versus the general distribution crews, who are usually the younger, not younger by age, but younger by experience.
I just got a vision of Armageddon with Bruce Willis, the master driller.
Yeah, that's what it is. When we went under 35W a few weeks ago, we had to do it 3 a.m, and it's like playing Frogger. People are jumping across, and we drilled out, we pulled back, lost 3 pipes. So guess what? We had to come back 2 weeks later and do it again.
Yeah.
It's the reality of it.
Now, 30, 40 years ago, this was all manual, and it was actually dangerous because these holes would collapse on people. And I mean, people would actually occasionally get killed. And it's way better and safer now. I haven't heard of a bad accident for a long time now. So
no, we had one. Remember when
you?
they flooded downtown Minneapolis? Some contractor hit a water main, and all of a sudden, half of the river was in the downtown corridor. That was oops.
Yeah, oops.
That was a problem. But again, it was a missed mark.
I have a question. Does Hoover still make vacuums, or are we talking about a Dyson vacuum when you referred to a?
I will Google it.
It depends on how innovative. I feel like Hoover's that old classic, super reliable.
It is.
Dyson's really flashy and amazing and cost efficient.
Yes, Hoover does.
Well, they still make them. I could just got a whole page of them. Yep.
And as long as we're at that, what was that word you called Kim again?
Inimitable.
How do you spell that?
I don't know. I just say it. Inimitable.
Inimitable?
Close enough.
Inimical. That's good.
This show educates along with entertains.
So good or unusual as to be impossible to copy. Unique.
Yeah. Now,
wait, someone spelled it for us on the notes here. Awesome.
Yeah. INIMIT able.
Able.
I want to note that Kim sent me a note earlier because I'm her favorite. And she included a photo of all of her glasses, saying that she might have a problem. And it was many fewer glasses than I expected.
What? Yeah. You're just telling us now after an hour?
Can we see it? See it?
But that wasn't all my glasses. Those are the only ones that are out on display. I think it was like 9. So
wow.
While we're tailing with some loose ends, I'll just say that I've asked for reviews for the wings and whether they are future-proof or DSL. And I have to say I'm totally biased because they're from the national chain, and therefore I'm going to have to say they're DSL.
They're DSL, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're probably not even
I'm
chicken.
going to smear over my face now.
Eat, Chris. Eat.
I think we just lost the last actual live guest on that.
Well, I am curious if there's any other questions from people anywhere about the digging, the rights of way, and stuff like that.
Is anybody watching this?
Yes, and more people are
There
watching
is.
on YouTube. This is
How do
useful
you
stuff.
tell?
Well, there's a 7 up here by the eyeball icon.
I don't
Right.
have
That's
the
right.
7.
You're not logged in.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So there
Okay.
you go. The California story. Did we really get into that? Because I feel like California really is a disaster. That's what we hear from people.
California brings like half of the characteristics of the national park guys down to the local level. I mean, they really go overboard on, that little thing you just had with Verizon there. Oh my heavens, that would have never been allowed to happen in California because there would have been inspectors out at all stages of it. But of course, you pay for it. All those people that they have to do all that stuff, the bill goes to you. So I mean, it's way, and it just makes it way more expensive there to get work done. So, but in the long run, it is more public friendly. I mean, it kind of keeps the bad contractors in line. So
that makes sense. Is there a way to be responsible and to make this work? Because one of the things I see from people is that a problem is that this is very much one size fits all, which is something that government likes to do because it's not accused of picking winners and losers and whatnot.
What we've always found is, again, forget big cities like where you're at, but we've worked with a number of cities who, because they wanted all fiber, they actually changed some of the rules before day one started, knowing full well that that's going to apply to everyone else now too. So they do a fresh start. They go, look, so now it's easier for Comcast too and everyone else, but they've gummed up the rules for 30 years. And some of the rules conflict, and some of the rules don't even make sense. And they might have made sense with a different older technique, and now they just fresh it up. So some cities are very proactive. There's the exact opposite of that, though. I worked in a township in Michigan where the poles were probably 80 years old. They were 15 feet off the road, which means they were now in heavy woods, and you couldn't even find them, let alone put something on them. And the county said, and meanwhile along the road is these awesome wide soft dirt ditches, and the county said you can't use the ditches. You can only go over to the public right of way, which is under the poles, which meant drilling through trees, roots, thousands of tree roots, and meanwhile the ditches are full of Frontier stuff. It's like Frontier's in there. They go, we don't care. It's like, you let them do it. It didn't matter. And this was just an issue where the guys in charge of it were like 89 years old, and they didn't give a damn about fiber.
Yeah.
So the county, I mean, they really hurt this one township. They probably paid 40% extra for the network because of that rule.
But I don't think it's a one size fits all, because I know there's someone in the chat that says, what's the ideal permitting process? I don't think there's a one size fits all, because like you said, there's smaller communities and there's bigger communities. And I think it's about streamlining the process and looking at the process and just streamlining it to the best of your ability.
There's little communities where the permitting process is Joe comes out and walks up and down the street with you and go, you can do this. I mean, that's ideal, but that's not ideal if you mess something up. I mean, I like a little more structure than that, actually. So.
We've built cities where they have one guy who knows where the water pipes are. So you have to walk through the city for the one guy who knows where the city water pipes are. I mean,
well, I've also worked on a project where that one guy who knew where everything was went on vacation for a month and didn't tell anybody. There's 7 idle work crews. It's like, oh boy, that's not working. So it's so weird, horrible sometimes that it's comical, but it's not comical when the money's going out the door and you're not getting anywhere. So yeah.
So let me ask Kim to start. What would you say in terms of the characteristics of an ideal permitting process?
Don't overcomplicate it. I mean, I can go into what we need and what we don't need, but I think it's really dependent on cities. But it's just streamline it with a certain level of what you need, and don't overcomplicate anything that doesn't need to be overcomplicating, which government is really good at. So I can get into the nuts and bolts, but I just don't think that works. I think it's just about streamline and don't overcomplicate it for me. What do you think, Doug?
My favorite, if I had any one rule, it would be sort of back to the one Travis brought up. I want the best permit allows me to do a pretty decent chunk of work at once. I don't want to have to do multiple little permits, because any one of them that gets in trouble kills the whole darn big section. And so, I want to be able to go in ahead of time and have enough work that I can set a crew loose and know it's going to happen. So that, to me, that's the best permitting. The paperwork part of it, you can figure out.
Yeah.
And so once you've done 100 different cities, it's like, okay, this is like that one, and that's really not that bad. But
I think of this like homework in the limited number of days I went to school. If you do a good job on your homework and they don't have a lot of questions to ask of you, the permits move through pretty well. Yeah. If you send them a Google KMZ and they're like, I want to go here, that's going to come back to you. It's got to be a proper permit that you submit.
But
go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, there's a lot of other aspects. Do you have good people at the city that you're working with who are processing these permits? I mean, I think that we can put the ideal permitting process in place, but if you don't have the people who are working on the other side who are handling these permits, it can be a disaster just as much as anything. So I think where Travis was going is relationships are important.
Right.
And the quality of work that you are submitting is super important as well.
Yeah.
Because relationships will get you a lot farther if you have a problem than if you are angry and yelling at the permitting people.
Yes, and if there's a problem comes up, deal with it now.
And what's the magic word in the permitting office, Travis? You told me about this before.
Please.
Well, that's a terrific word. There's a magic
Thank you.
word there.
And thank you. Yeah.
Right. The magical word was 20-year plan.
Oh, you mean how we cheat?
No. How you remind the city that it's actually trying to prioritize these kinds of
Okay.
investments.
We dumbed in. I think I've told you this, guys, the story before, but I didn't know this, that cities do their 20-year plan. When Minneapolis did theirs, we got added to the 20-year plan. So now if we run into any problems with any department at the city, I'm like, we're in the plan. What do you want me to do?
Sweet.
What do you want me to tell the city council about the plan that they authorized?
When Travis says that they're in the plan, it doesn't say Travis Carter and whatever he happens to be doing. It says that the plan is to get a fiber out to everyone.
But they've never read the plan, so I just tell them we're in the plan.
No, I mean, it's clear that Travis's investment is what the plan has in mind. But it's
Well,
really
that was going to work for you, but I just noticed that 4 of the people online are from the city. Boy,
Yeah,
I'm in
exactly.
trouble.
Now
No, but I think this is it's really valuable to understand. Like Travis said, the people in the office that he deals with, they're trying to do a good job.
They are.
And they need the guidance of whether Travis is out there doing something that's just like weird and not normal, which he is, but also whether or not that's within the city's vision of what it wants to be doing. And so when they see that, oh, this thing that we don't deal with regularly is actually something we're supposed to prioritize, now we'll prioritize it.
They want good partners. Cities want good partners. I mean, that's ultimately, they don't want to put these rules in place, but they have to block all the people who screwed them through the years. They want good partners. And if they have good partners, I think the permitting process goes a lot smoother.
Yeah, and I got to put a shout out to everyone in Minneapolis. They're amazing. But we've built that reputation. You know, if they have a problem, we address it now, and we don't leave things. I mean, what I hear from them all the time is somebody did work like by your house. They don't even know who did it. They can't find them to help resolve the homeowner's issue that's out front. That's what frustrates the city. You know, with us, they call us up and we know who did the work and we can get it addressed.
Well, and unfortunately, the bigger the carrier, the higher the chance that there wasn't even a permit to start with.
Which actually sometimes works in our favor too, because they're so busy dealing with Verizon and these guys that we're really not a problem.
Don't be a problem. Good lesson from the day.
Yeah. And don't yell and scream and act a fool.
Wait a minute.
You know,
are we getting down to do be a do be, don't be a don't be?
Well, I want to know if we can unveil the new segment I would like to have every time with when we have Kim and Doug on here. Government program of the week. Which one is it? I heard one NTI or something you said.
NTIA, the National
NTIA, that's a new one I haven't heard
Information
of. What's this
Administration.
one?
National Telecommunications and Information Administration under the Department of Commerce.
And that's
So
they are
And
aware.
they are in charge of the entire. They are in charge of everything the FCC is not in charge of. But since we don't know what the FCC is in charge of anymore, it gets confusing.
And it's not a big deal that we don't have a permanent administrator for the NTIA when they're
Right.
the ones who are giving out the infrastructure money if that bill ever gets passed.
Yeah, let's do an update of that because I feel like right now it's a question, and I don't know who's going to be in. We could actually do a bet here. Someone has to send someone wings. The question is, end of October, the infrastructure bill is passed with the broadband stuff substantially as it is today.
No way
No way in the world.
I'm in.
Now I think there's almost 100% chance the infrastructure, that piece gets passed. Even if they dumb it down to $1 billion, that's still going to be roads, bridges, telecom, and electric.
Say a
So
billion?
I-
Did you mean
I
a
mean
billion?
trillion.
Okay.
Yeah, trillion. So even if so what they're trying to whack out of it is all the social stuff. So I think the hardcore infrastructure stays in, but end of October, there's no way I'm taking that bet.
I'll take that bet. I'll take that bet and say
Wow.
it will be done by the end of October. And
Wow.
I think that it will be substantially the same. I agree with Doug. I think all of the social stuff will get removed, but I think the broadband stuff will stay for the most part. Like the infrastructure part of the broadband will stay.
No, I also wouldn't bet on it staying the same only because last year when the House passed their version of this bill, it was way different. So hopefully they get some brains and they look at this one and say, why don't we make it close? Because otherwise the reconciliation will be a bear. So let's hope they do that. So
Okay, so it's Kim and Doug. On October 31st, we'll know who won.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on.
Yeah, that's not very long.
Wings from you or what?
that's only
I think
3
you and I already
weeks.
have a bet.
You already have a bet? I can't.
I
keep
don't
up.
really want chicken wings shipped from Utah, though. I mean, are they? Well, no, are they not gonna? I mean, by the time they either get UPS or whatever here, are they gonna be safe? I don't know about that.
No, I think it's the 21st century. I don't know, it's some century after the 20th, and I think it's like 1-800-Flowers or whatever. Like you can find a way to get.
You think there's 1-800-Wings? I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
Now,
Kim was
I gotta
talking
go
about
now. I gotta
Instacart
go.
or something. She
I have
said.
to go. I have to go Google.
Yeah.
Now.
Hey, Doug, don't worry. I have a family house in North Carolina. If I get up there, then I'll go buy you some wings, Doug. If I lose, but I won't lose.
Well, it doesn't matter. I'll buy you the beer either way.
Well, this has been very fun. Looking forward.
We're gonna do
to
one of
having you
these where you two are there and us two are here.
Yeah.
No, I'm very serious, Doug, that in 2022, I want to be at an event where the 4 of us are, and we're all talking with a delay in our ears.
Boy, how could you make that sound more attractive?
Yeah, do we all get chicken wings? That's my biggest concern.
Oh, 100%.
Yes,
Okay.
we should just do it in a wing restaurant. I mean, how expensive could those be to buy out?
Ooh.
So,
Oh no, you do with all the background noise. We've already done one at an airport. This is no
Sure.
challenge.
yeah,
So,
I like this idea a lot.
It worked out pretty slick, actually.
Yeah, it says Travis Whitney, a single wing.
I will. Don't worry. Hey, I got to get my 10,000 calories today. I gotta start now. Hey, shout out to my buddy Jay Hankey who watched. One of the best fiber builders I've ever met.
Yeah.
Well done, Jay.
Yeah.
One of the 7. Kim, feel better.
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
say hi to your wife.
Yes, have a wonderful dinner.
Yes,
And
indeed.
next week, I believe we're going to be back in this time slot. I'm going to try and do a much better job of advertising it. Maybe Doug will even promote it, even though he's not going to be on that episode. We're going to have folks from Longmont and Clarksville, Tennessee, to talk about their builds. And we're going to kind of go in depth and talk about things that maybe they learned along the way and things like that. So
Excellent.
it's going to be a fun time. So thank you, everyone. This has been an episode of Connect This. And it's been... Oh, I'm back.
And we got
I
booted
was
off.
going to say,
Boom.
so I want to say, and it's been our first real live in-person episode. And I really appreciate Henry, who I give no warning. I'm a nightmare for a person like Henry who's directing this episode. So thank you, Henry. Thank
Well
you,
done.
Rye.
Well done.
Thank you,
all my
Henry.
staff behind the scenes who makes this happen.
Well done. Oh, shoot. It's 5 o'clock and I got traffic for the first time
Now
in
you
a
got to
year
stick
and
around
a
here
half.
for a while.
Oh, good.